Hello, everybody. It's a big pleasure to having this webinar. I may say good afternoon or good morning to Edgar that he is in the north side of the world. He's sitting in New Zealand today. So we're welcome everybody that is taking time today to be live in this webinar Friday afternoon. And today we're gonna be having Edgar Raffin. Actually, he's from Argentina, but he is in New Zealand and he's a broiler advisor. And he will be presenting today strategic decisions on day zero placement in breeders and broilers. Like always, this webinar is gonna be recorded and then it's gonna be accessibility by pre in our platforms and that's going to happen in approximately 1 week and a half. The presentation is going to be around 40 minutes, and then we're going to have around 5-10 minutes of question and answer. So, Edgar, thank you very much for being with us today, and thank you very much for your willingness to share your knowledge. I know that both of your passion. So, thank you very much for being with us today. So, the time is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Rodolfo. Can you hear me properly?
Sí, señor. Yes, sir.
Perfectly. Thank you very much. Okay, I will start. Thank you very much, everyone, to join today in the Poultry School. The idea today is this topic about placements. I think it's one of the most important topics in poultry production because the majority of the people, the company usually not check the chickens in 0 days of life. And from my personal view, it's very important to predict the results in the future. The evolution of broiler growth. During the past, the chickens, when the people start to work in genetic to improve the chickens in the past, we can see we talk about poultry production in months. It's meaning about in 1920, the chickens grow more or less between 5 to 6 months to produce only 1 kg. And with one FCR to close to 5 kg, the chickens were not very efficient. And then over the time, we started to talking about weeks, between 8 to 10 weeks to finish a run of a chickens. Then after years in days, 40 to 45 days, today currently we are talking about days also, depend the countries and depend the production we had between 40 to 50 days to finish a run. But now, after 2020, we start to talking about hours. And we're talking about 1,000 hours. Why 1,000 hours? Because this is the time to produce a chicken, more or less, an average in the world. And we can see in 2020, we jumped to 1 kg to 2.1 kg in 28 days of life, and with one FCR lower than 1.5. One thing is very important is the first 168 or 240 hours is the time about the chickens grow more than 20% of the life. It means about this time, it's very important because the first 7 days, if we management accurate, we will finish with a successful result. But the placement is very important because when the chickens arrive in the sheet, we can figure out the result for the future. More or less an average with the normal chicken between 40 to 45 grams, but of course depend the donor flocks, but it's only an average. These chickens grow to 3.2 to 3.5 kg only in 1,000 hours. When we divided these 1,000 hours, we can see the chickens grow to 60 to 70 times in all the life of the chickens. It's meaning about between 2 to 4 grams per hour. And then I will mention several times these grams because this is a critical information to keep an eye and analyze, because if we lose performance in a couple of hours in the chicken's life, we lose money. For this, check the chickens in the first time. From my personal point of view, it's very important. Here, I will bring only one result from New Zealand. I know New Zealand is a special country because usually I'm not saying the best results in the world, but one of the good results in the world is coming from this country because New Zealand has the best condition to grow chicken. We have an average of temperature between 18 to 22 degree all the year. In summer, sometimes it's a little hot, but not too much. And also, we don't have a disease challenge here. We are almost not free because this year and the last year was several cases about avian flu, but not anymore. But in general, the health condition of the chickens are very good. For this, we can see the potential of the genetic here. An average with 40 grams in days in 1 day of life. This is a normal average, and we produce 3 kg in 40 days. If we calculate this 3,000 grams minus 40 grams, we can find this body weight, how much the chickens won in 40 days is 2,960 grams. Now, if we divide it for the days of life, it's meaning about 40 days times 24 hours, we have 960 hours. If we divided this 960 hour divided 2,960 grams, we have the chickens win per hour 3 grams. And this is amazing because we can figure out, calculate the result for the future. And this is important to keep in mind because what happened here, for example, if for any reason, any time of the chicken's life, the control feeder pans doesn't work, or the feed withdrawal it's long or more than necessary, or sometimes a breakdown in the processing plant or whatever, it's appear any problem, then we can calculate how many tons we lose in these hours. Because if we have, for example, 1 million chickens we kill in a couple of weeks, or depend the company, of course, sometimes in companies in Brazil is 1 day, but in this part of the world is a week. But we can calculate how many tons we lose per hour. For this, again, it's very important to thinking about this time per hour. And then every mistakes about the grants costs thousands of dollars. Then why its placement so critical? Because 20% of these bird life growths happen in the first 7 to 10 days. But to grow in a successful way these first 7 to 10 days, we need to check the chickens in the first times, in 0 days of life. And this will be impact in final weight, because if we start with an ugly chicken or a chicken in a bad condition, we will finish with very bad results. Then the FCR, the feed conversion ratio, is the most important because more or less 60 to 80% of the cost of the chicken is coming from the feed. For this is very important to work very efficient. Then the mortality, if we have a healthy chickens and a good size of chickens in 0 days, we can grow in a good way and minimize the risk of the mortality, because most of the losses it happen in the first 7 days when the chickens are very small. And then the profitability, it's because this is not a hobby. We are not growing chickens as a pet. We growing chicken for produce money. For this, it's very important to calculate the ROI, the return on investment. And if we don't work efficient, we will lose money. It look like I am a fanatic person about the Formula One cars, but it's not only. I love to compare this car with the chickens today, because for me it look like a Formula One, because the chickens grow extremely fast, 3, 4, or 5 grams per hour. It's amazing. Are a very good machine to transform feed in muscle. For this, I love to compare the Formula One. And to run in a Formula One, we need a lot of things to do, because if we are not doing all these steps, never happen the results. I will talk about the productions, the pillar production or production of pillar. It's similar to a table. Every leg represents one part of the change. And if one of these legs broke, usually the table will be full. For this, is very important to analyze these four steps. The first one is about the high performance genetic. This is currently today we have only two companies in the world, Aviagens and Cobb, to working with more than 90% of the poultry business in the world. And every time the genetic improve and the FCR drop and the body weight increase every year. Every year we have an improvement. Second one, it's about the management dependency. Like in Formula One cars, the genetics are machines, and this machine required a perfect environment to grow a good chickens. And the last one is two legs of the table. We have the flock health and growth, all the feed. The flock health, the sanitary integrity is very important because if we have a healthy environment without challenge, and if we're working very well in biosecurity and we clean everything and we work good in all the biosecurity topics, we can minimize the risk of diseases for the chickens. And this extra energy will go to the muscle, not to fighting with microorganisms. And then the feed quality, this is the petrol or the fuel for the chickens. If we're running a Formula One, we need a good quality of the fuel because if we don't have, the performance will be go down. And I put here one number about 80. And this is critically because sometimes the people believe the other part of the legs are the most important, but it's not. 80% of the result is coming from the management. For this working accurate and properly, it's very important. Common placements mistakes in poultry production. One of the common mistakes is not chick quality check. I'm not saying all the company not check the chicken because it's not true, but every time the poultry production is very intensive activity. For this, sometimes we don't have time to check the chicken quality. And this is one of the big mistakes because if you don't know what you are receiving in your sheds, you cannot predict the results in the future. For this part, for my personal view, is very important. Of course, we cannot check all the chickens all the time, but it's very good to organize a couple of pools and analyze, for example, two farms per week or a couple of sheds per week. And in this way, we can create data to analyze the information. Then poor transportation condition. This is the second one from my view. Here is not only about temperature fluctuation from the trucks. One of the problems, sometimes the communication is not very good from the hatchery to the growers, or sometimes the chicken stayed longer for longer distance into the truck, and all these problems can affect the performance of the chickens. Then the shed not properly prepared. This is another problem. Sometimes when we have problems and we don't have enough growers, or for example, sorry, or for example, we have problems with we need a lot of chickens and we don't have enough time to clean the sheds, to organize everything between one run to the next run. Sometimes appear a problem because not everything is done before coming the chicken. And this is very important, believe me, because if we don't have everything prepared before coming the chickens, then will appear problems. And then high variability in checked weights. This is information is also depend the donor flocks. When we have younger breeders, of course, we will receive small chickens. And when we have older breeders, we will receive big chickens. But we need to know this information. For this, it's important to check the body weight and wait a couple of chickens when arrive into the sheds. For these reasons, I create these Excel spreadsheets together with information from Aviagen, Cobb, and different advisors and people to support us here in New Zealand and in Argentina when I used to work there. And I designed this one. I talked with Rodolfo before to start here. When I finish the presentation, I will open in this Excel spreadsheet to explain deeper all the information there. because it look like complicated, but it's not. Basically, here in the left, the Excel spreadsheet in left side, it's more about the weight of the chicken, all the condition here about the, the information into the sheet, water quality, temperature, and density inside to the sheets. And the right one, it's more about the chicken quality, chicken assessment to analyze if the chickens are good or not. But I will explain later when we finish the presentation. First topics, the uniformity and the weight. From my personal view, this is critical because if we talk about the chickens growing between 2 to 4 grams per hour, this will be in relationship with the body weight in the first days of life. If we have a bigger chicken, usually we will finish with the big chicken. If we have a smaller, we will finish with the small chickens after 40 days, after or whatever the company, if you organize 28 days, 35 or 40 days. But we need to know this information. And also we need to analyze the CV. The CV is the coefficients or variations, all the uniformities, two kind of tool we can use. My Excel spreadsheet, and I will put then after the talking, we will put this information together in the website if anyone like to use. But this is a software from Aviagen to calculate the CV. The CV and the uniformities are two tools to analyze. Sometimes uniformity is easier because it's working exactly the same than the temperature in Celsius. You have 0 to 100. The CV is a little more complicated. We have here the formula. That is not to describe the formula. Both tools are working very well. But if we choose to use CV, the most important we need to understand if we have ACV close to 7 or less than 7, the uniformity will be close to 90%. And this is very good. It's meaning about the uniformity of the flocks are pretty close one to the other. Then if we have ACV more than 10%, it's a poor uniformity, usually is less than 75 or 76% of the uniformity. And the problem about this situation is when the uniformity is not accurate and the body weight is very open one to the other, then it's possible appear a problem with the predictions. And if we have problem with the predictions, then maybe you weigh the chickens and you say, okay, 3 kg, for example, in 40 days. But then when the catchers come in to catch the chickens and then go into the processing plant, then when you receive the result, it's not 3, it's 3.1, 2.9, 2.8, and you say, what's happening? Because I weighed very well my chickens, and maybe the weight process was accurate, but when the CV is very open or the uniformity is very low, then it's possible to appear a problem for the predictions. And usually the company use the predictions to calculate the total of the meat to the company will produce to provide the customers. Then the critical environment parameters. This is the Excel spreadsheet. It's a part when we need to complete all the information in the placement. The idea is before coming the chickens. First one is the temperature, liter temperature and floor temperature. We can use these guns. I will see. We can use these guns to check the liter temperature. The expectation is between 30 to 36 degrees. And the floor temperature that is more than 28 degrees. Why we check both? Because if the concrete is a little colder, we'll transfer this temperature to the shaving, and we need a warm shaving or a warm place before coming the chickens because we need to remember the animals cannot regulate along the temperature. We need a good, accurate temperature because the animals are poikilothermos and cannot regulate in the first 7 days. Then after these 7 days or 10 days, the chicken start to regulate along the temperature. Then the local temperature, Aviagen or COP recommend this sensor to check the internal temperature of the chickens, this the brown it's brown, and it's very good and it's very accurate. The only things here we need to keep an eye, because we need to remember the feathers are very good insulation system. For this, when we check the temperature, we need to put a little up the feathers, and we need to check very well the sensor into the vent of the chicken. Not too much, we need to push a little, but we need to do in this way, because if we touch feathers, then the results of the temperature will be low, and then we'll be confused and we will create a wrong data. And this one, we can see here in the left, we have a thermographic camera. This is a big one, working very, very well, but this is a very cool device, sorry, because this we can plug in our phones, and it's very easy because you can keep with you in any place, and working exactly the same than the big one. I recommend this one. I don't have, but I have the big one, but I like it. Air quality. Air quality, this is my favorite sensor. This is a sensor to check humidity, temperature, and CO2. I'm not a seller, just in case. If you find a good CO2 sensor, do it. The idea is to create the data, doesn't matter the brand of the sensor. But this is working very, very good. I use more than 5 years, and it's working very well. And this, we will collect the data about humidity, CO2, and temperature. Humidity, the idea, it's not more than 65% of humidity inside of the sheds, because if we have high temperature with high humidity, then we will affect the performance of the chickens, and the thermal sensation will be high, and we will affect the chickens. And the CO2, this is for me one of the most critical part in poultry production, because usually the CO2 levels, the people check, but sometimes not thinking the importance about the CO2. When we have CO2 levels more than 3,500, the chicken start to eat and drink less and sleep more. And it's not a good combination when we're thinking we are winning 2 to 4 grams per hour. And also, when we have more than 4,000 ppm permanent, we can produce a lot of ascites for the chicken, and we will lose a lot of chicken. For this, is very important to work with the minimum ventilation. The minimum ventilation is not only in relationship about temperature, humidity, and CO2, it's about by time. For this, at least we need to ventilate every 8 to 10 minutes, at least 30 to 35 seconds, to remove all the dust and all the CO2 levels inside. Then the water parameters. This is a cheaper sensor, and for me it's very important also, because the water is one of the most important nutrients. More than 80% of the nutrition is coming from the water. For this, it's very important to check also, if you are an advisor, to go to check different sheds or different company or farms. Sometimes if you don't know if the water is good or not, you can check with this one. And this is only about the chemical information, not microbiology. For microbiology, you need to take samples and send to the laboratory. But it's a cheaper sensor, and you can check different information. I will explain later all the things we can check with this sensor. And then the space and light. This is another device. It's a laser meter, and we can calculate the square meter the chickens per square meter. Sometimes the company, when it's working with has hatch, it's meaning about not sexing the chicken. Usually it's not a problem, because you receive all the chickens and the company know how many square meter you have in your shed. For this, it's okay. But when you're working with sexing chickens, and sometimes you don't have 50 and 50%, you need to calculate the exact square meter to avoid overpopulation in one place and low population in another part. It meaning about males and females. If we will put a partition, we need to calculate the accuracy. If we're working, for example, with 15 chicken per square meter, we need to try to calculate exactly the same space for males and females, or a little more for males because the males growing faster compared to females. Then the light, we need a light meter at least the first 7 days. Our expectation or the avian expectation is more than 80 lux. For this is very important to check because sometimes we have dark places, not in all the sheds, and we need to check if the light there is accurate or not. And then the proper feed spacing, because sometimes we don't have enough feeder pans or we don't have enough feed for all the chickens, and it's important to calculate exactly the accurate space per chickens. Now we have here the water parameters. This sensor, when I mentioned before, is not expensive, and we can collect, from my view, very important data. First one, TDS. TDS is the total dissolved solids. This is a parameter to identify the organic material into the drinking lines. The expectation is less than 300 ppm. If we have more, and sometimes I found 1,000 or 800 ppm, which mean the drinking lines are not clean. And of course, we can flush the drinking line, we can put products inside to clean, but this is good to know before coming the chickens, because if we know we have a little contaminated the drinking lines inside, we can take action before coming the chickens. Then the electroconductivity, or EC, this is a parameter that identifies the amount of the salt in the water. The expectation is less than 400 units per centimeters. It's considered good quality of water. Of course, depend the company and depend the places. Sometimes some places have a lot of hard water, and this hard water we need to thinking, and we need to analyze, because when we have a lot of minerals, not only affect the chickens, also affect the nipples and all the stuff when we have a lot of salt. Then the pH, hydrogen potentially. This is a parameter that identify the water, if the water is alkaline or acid. I don't know, but I don't know what happened with the presentation, but I put acid and alkaline, but anyway, is to identify if the water is alkaline or acid. The expectation with the good water quality is between 6.5 to 7. When it's close to 7, neutral is much better. And honestly, I prefer not more than 9, or I prefer not more than 8, because when it's a little alkaline, we have a big chance to grow a lot of bacteria inside. And then dissolved salts, this is another parameter to check the amount of salt. The expectation is less than 0.05%. If we have more, it's a good indication to analyze the water and try to take action if it's possible. And then temperature. The idea is below 25 degrees. The accurate temperature for the chickens, it's between 18 to 22 degrees, but less than 25, it's a good temperature. When we have more than 30 degrees, the chicken start to drink less. Then the key impact in these variables, we have chicken quality. I will explain later after this slide about the information about the chicken quality, but basically we need to check about the navels, reflex, leg condition, beak condition, etc. The goal is 90%. If we have 90% in general with a good quality of the chickens, will be good. It's not, we need to send a report, or we need to communicate with the hatchery and with the company to take action in the future. Then transport conditions, the ideal truck temperature is between 25 to 28 degrees. Exists a lot of information that Aviagen has, and when we have temperature more than 30 degrees inside to the truck, affect the performance of the chickens. And when we have lower than 20 degrees, it's exactly the same. We can affect, but it's worse when it's cold temperature than warm. Of course, if it's very warm, the chickens will die, but it's worse when the temperature inside of the truck is very cold. Then the initial setup, when I mentioned before about proper shade environment, we need to check everything before coming the chickens. And the feed and water. Water, I mentioned before, it's one of key impact in the chickens. And the feed, we need to provide a good size. We have these tools. The name is Feed Shaker Sieve. This is from Aviagen, and it's amazing tool because you can collect a feed sample from there and analyze the size of the feed. The expectation here is 80 or 70% of 70 or 80% of the feed. We're expecting to see the feed here in this part, less than 3 millimeters. When we have more than three, will be stayed here. And the problem when we have a big size of the feed, the consumption of the feed, we can see start to going down because the chickens are not prepared to eat a big pellet. Then we have the chick assessment. Sorry, I will drink a little water. Okay, about the evaluation about the chicken quality. We have the reflex. Reflex is very important because if the chicken stayed longer into the truck or in the hatchery or whatever, we can see the chickens not recover soon, and we need to put the back of the chickens in our hands, and then the chickens need to turn around in less than 3 seconds. If we have less than 3 seconds, wonderful. If we don't have, we need to analyze what happened. Then about the navel is one of the most important indication to analyze the health of the chickens. We can see here in the left side, we can see a navel with the bad quality open. We can see there it's a little green, this start the infection there, and these chickens usually will die before 7 days. And a normal one, we can see here the navel, it's almost closed. And we expecting more than 90% in this condition. Then we have the legs, we expecting straight legs. If we have any deformity or any problems, we need to put in the Excel spreadsheets. Then we have the peak of the chickens, because this peak we expecting with the normal occlusions. With the pigs, if we don't have a normal occlusion, we need to take actions. And then the hogs, usually the hogs of the chickens when are very healthy, the skin on the hogs is the normal color, yellow color. When it's a little red, it's meaning about a problem, maybe about overheating into the hatchery, or sometimes the chicken stayed longer in the hatchery and the chickens to broke the shell push a lot, and for this appear this problem. Then defects, we have we have a lot of pictures there to put, but more or less this is only an example. When we have animals with more legs, or we have big deformity, or are not opening the eyes, this is a chicken's defect and we need to score. And then the last one is death. This is happening sometimes when the chicken stay longer into the basket, or sometimes when the temperature is not accurate. Conclusions and next steps. The placement is a technical process and not just logistic. We need training, and we need to try to do at least 2 or 3 per week. Of course, if we have the time and we have the people to do, to create data and analyze, because this is a proper information which will help to grow the results in a good way. Then measurements. If we don't measure, we cannot improve. For this, every time we need to measure everything. And then the holistic approach, good chicken quality plus environmental support is what it equals to success or money. For this is very important about this approach, about chicken quality, environment support in a good conditions. Then I put here a couple of tools. It look like a lot, but just in case it's only a couple of tools to know. Here in the left side, we have a lot of tool, maybe exist more, but I use this one to work in breeders and broilers and analyze the data. It's a lot of more tools there. I put there to only to check if you want them later. And then here in the right sides, for me, we have the most important. The thermometer to check the chicken's vent, the guns to check the chicken, the shavings and the concrete, the CO2, my favorite one, the scales to check the body weight, the laser meter to check the square meter, light meter, the sensor to check the water quality, thermographic camera, for me this is a very good device, and the sieve to check the feed size. Thank you very much. And I'm not finished yet. The idea is then after this presentation, I will show the Excel spreadsheet. It's
Thank
okay,
you,
Rodolfo?
Yes, Edgar, please, let's do what we discussed. You can share the Excel file.
Yes. Um, yeah, we have, yes. Is this one, Rodolfo?
We cannot see it. We still see your presentation.
You can see or no?
No, we still see your last slide.
I will. Anyway, yes, I don't know what's happening, but anyway, I will explain here.
Okay, you
Is
can
this
put
one?
it share presentation.
Yes, I
There you
can.
go.
Can you see? Can you see this one?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, I will explain here. Doesn't matter because Rodolfo, then after this presentation, the idea is to put this Excel spreadsheet in this way the people can use it if the people want.
Okay.
But yes, here in this Excel spreadsheet, we can see here the farm name. We put the name of the farm, then the date, the shed, and the breeder flocks here. Then in the left side, we have about the weight of the chickens plus here lower, it's the body weight and the CV. And in this Excel spreadsheet, it's coming the software to calculate alone. The only things you need to put is the information there and the software calculate alone body weight and CV. Then we have here, if we're working with sexing, we have males and females. Then here in the right side, we have about the liter temperature, concrete temperature, humidity, the lux. We need to try to walk in different spot of the sheds. Then the light program depend the regulation of the country, but the recommendation from Aviation is 23.1 the first 3 or 4 days. And then the water quality here, which I mentioned before, plus the CO2 levels. Then we have the feed to analyze. When we have 2 or 3 millimeters, the idea is to find only for the startup and smaller amount and more amount in the small size of the feed. Then the temperature of the chickens here, temperature of the trucks, and then the square meter with the laser meter we can calculate. Then we have here the 6 eras, males and females. And that's all in this Excel spreadsheet. And in the right, we have to calculate the chicken quality. We have here reflex, navel, leg, peak, hocks, defects, and dead. When we finish to complete the software, we calculate along the percentage of the chicken quality. Remember, the expectation is more than 90%. If we have less, it's very good to notify the company or the hatchery and try to work for the future. And this is all.
Perfect. So I don't know if you have a question for the audience. I think we don't have any questions, Edgar. So thank you very much for your presentation. We are really appreciate your time.
Thank you very
I
much.
think that people can find you in social media through our page. So as we say before, we're gonna be sharing this video in what we can have. And
Okay.
see you soon, Edgar. And thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rodolfo.
See you. Bye bye.
See you. Bye bye.